Marcus Chen pressed his back against the cold metal wall of the mining station's corridor, his heart hammering against his ribs. The emergency lights cast everything in hellish red, and somewhere in the darkness ahead that thing was hunting his wife. The Vexhai had arrived 3 hours ago without warning. Their sleek black ships had materialized from hyperspace like nightmares given form, immediately jamming all communications. The mining colony of Kepler 442b had been defenseless, its small security force overwhelmed in minutes by creatures that seemed pulled from humanity's darkest fears. Marcus had seen one up close during the initial attack. 8 feet tall, covered in chitinous armor that gleamed like oil, with 4 arms ending in razor claws and a face that was all teeth and hunger. The Vexhai were apex predators from a world where mercy was weakness and fear was currency. Now Sarah was trapped somewhere in the lower levels with one of those monsters, and Marcus was running out of time. He clutched the mining laser in his hands, knowing it was pathetically inadequate. The tool was designed to cut through rock, not alien armor, but it was all he had. The Colonial Marines wouldn't arrive for another 6 hours, assuming they received the automated distress beacon that had launched before the jamming started. Marcus forced himself to think. Sarah had been in the geological lab when the attack began. She would have tried to reach the emergency bunkers, but the main corridors were crawling with Vexhai. That meant she would have taken the maintenance tunnels that ran beneath the facility. The tunnels were narrow, forcing the large aliens to move single file, but they also had multiple access points. A smart predator would have anticipated that escape route. The station's artificial gravity hummed beneath his feet as Marcus moved through the shadows. Every sound made him freeze. Every flicker of light could be death approaching. He had never been a soldier, just a mining engineer who had followed his xenogeologist wife to this remote world. Because they both dreamed of discovery among the stars, that dream had become a nightmare. Marcus reached the maintenance access hatch and paused. The metal was warm to the touch, which meant the environmental systems were still running. At least Sarah wouldn't freeze to death down there. The thought provided little comfort as he opened the hatch and dropped into the narrow tunnel below. The maintenance tunnels were darker than the corridors above, lit only by small emergency strips every 50 meters. Marcus activated the mining laser's illumination beam, keeping the power low to avoid detection. The confined space made his breathing sound unnaturally loud. He had gone perhaps 200 meters when he heard it, a wet sliding sound echoing from somewhere ahead, accompanied by the distinctive clicking that Vexhai made when they hunted. Marcus killed his light immediately and pressed himself against the tunnel wall. The sounds grew closer, not just one set of clicks, but 2, multiple hunters working in coordination. Marcus felt his hope crumble. Even if he could somehow kill one Vexhai with his improvised weapon, there was no way he could handle 2. Then he heard Sarah scream. The sound cut through him like a blade, erasing every rational thought. Marcus activated the mining laser's cutting beam and ran toward the sound, no longer caring about stealth or tactics or the impossibility of his situation. His wife was in danger, and that was the only thing that mattered. The tunnel curved ahead, and Marcus could see a faint glow coming from what looked like a junction chamber. He could hear Sarah's voice now, not screaming but talking in the calm, measured tone she used when explaining geological formations to tourists. She was trying to communicate with the aliens. Marcus reached the edge of the chamber and peered around the corner. The sight that greeted him defied everything he thought he knew about the Vexhai. Sarah sat on the floor in the center of the chamber, her back straight and her hands visible. 2 Vexhai crouched before her, their massive forms barely fitting in the space. But they weren't attacking. They were listening. Sarah was speaking to them in their own language. Marcus stared in shock as his wife produced a series of clicks, hisses, and guttural sounds that perfectly mimicked Vexhai communication. The aliens responded in kind, their posture changing from predatory to something that almost looked like curiosity. How was this possible? The Vexhai had never been encountered before today. There were no records of their language, no diplomatic contact, nothing that would have allowed Sarah to learn their speech patterns. Yet here she was, conducting what appeared to be an actual conversation with humanity's would-be destroyers. One of the Vexhai extended a clawed hand towards Sarah. Marcus tensed, ready to charge into the chamber despite the hopelessness of the situation. But the alien didn't strike. Instead, it gently touched something Sarah was holding. Marcus could see it now, A small rock sample, the kind Sarah collected from every world they visited. The Vexi made a sound Marcus had never heard before. It was almost musical, like whale song mixed with wind chimes. The second alien joined in, creating a haunting harmony that echoed through the chamber. Sarah nodded and carefully placed the rock sample on the ground between them. Both aliens immediately focused on it with an intensity that bordered on reverence. They began producing rapid-fire clicks and whistles, occasionally looking at Sarah as if seeking confirmation of something. Marcus realized he was witnessing something unprecedented in human history. First contact was supposed to involve diplomats and scientists and carefully planned protocols. Instead, his geologist wife was sitting in a maintenance tunnel, apparently discussing mineralogy with alien predators who had come here to kill them all. The larger of the two Vexi suddenly stopped mid-conversation and turned its head toward Marcus's hiding spot. 4 black eyes fixed on his position with predatory precision. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. The alien said something to Sarah in their musical language. She turned to look directly at Marcus's hiding spot and spoke in perfect English. "Marcus, you can come out now. They want to meet you." Marcus stepped into the chamber with his mining laser still clutched in his hands. Though he kept it pointed toward the floor, the two Vexi watched him with an intelligence that made his skin crawl. Up close, they were even more terrifying than he had imagined. Their chitinous armor seemed to shift and flow in the dim light, and he could smell something like ozone and copper coming from their bodies. Sarah smiled at him, as if sitting between 2 apex predators was the most natural thing in the world. "They're not what we thought, Marcus. They're not here to kill us." The larger Vexi, who seemed to be the leader, produced a series of clicks that sounded almost like laughter. Sarah responded in their language, then translated for Marcus. "His name is roughly equivalent to Stone Singer. He says you smell like fear and determination," which is apparently a combination they respect. Marcus found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "How are you speaking their language?" "This is first contact. We've never encountered their species before." Sarah picked up the rock sample she had been showing the aliens. It was a small piece of crystalline formation, unremarkable except for its perfect geometric structure. "This isn't first contact, Marcus. It's a reunion." The second Vexi, smaller but somehow more elegant in its movements, spoke to Sarah. She nodded gravely before turning back to Marcus. "This is Echo of Depths. She's what we might call their chief scientist. And according to her, this crystal contains something impossible, something that suggests Earth and their homeworld Vextar were once connected." Marcus stared at the crystal. It looked like dozens of others in Sarah's collection, samples from various worlds they had visited during their 3 years in space. "Connected how?" Stonesinger reached into what Marcus now realized was the equipment harness and withdrew his own crystal. It was identical to Sarah's sample in every way except size. When he held it near Sarah's crystal, both began to emit a soft pulsing light. "Quantum entanglement," Sarah breathed, but not just any entanglement. "These crystals are naturally occurring quantum communicators. The Vexi have been using them for interstellar communication for thousands of years." Echo of Depths spoke again, her musical voice carrying what sounded like excitement. Sarah listened intently, occasionally asking questions in the alien language that Marcus was beginning to realize she was learning in real time rather than already knowing. She says their species has been searching for the source worlds of these crystals for generations. The crystals appear on planets throughout the galaxy, but always in small quantities and always in the same geometric formation. The Vexi call them starseeds. Marcus lowered his mining laser completely. "You're saying these crystals are some kind of ancient communication network?" "More than that." Sarah's eyes were bright with the kind of excitement he usually only saw when she discovered a new mineral formation. "According to Echo of Depths, the starseeds contain genetic information, blueprints for life itself. Every world that contains these crystals develops intelligent life eventually, and that life always follows certain patterns." Stonesinger produced another sound that Sarah translated as amusement. He spoke to her, gesturing toward Marcus. He says humans are the third species they've encountered that developed from starseed worlds. The first were the Vexi themselves. The second was a species called the Morden, who achieved spaceflight about 5,000 years ago. "What happened to the Morden?" Marcus asked, though he had a sinking feeling he already knew the answer. Echo of Depths replied with what was clearly sadness in her voice. Sarah's face grew somber as she translated. They destroyed themselves. War, environmental collapse, the usual species adolescence problems. But before they died out, they created an archive, a repository of their knowledge and achievements. The Vexhi have been guarding it ever since. Marcus felt the pieces clicking together in his mind. The Vexhi aren't here to conquer us. They're here to evaluate us. Stonesinger nodded, a gesture that looked oddly human despite his alien features. He spoke directly to Marcus this time, though Sarah still translated. He says every starseed species reaches what they call the threshold, the point where they achieve interstellar travel and begin expanding beyond their home system. Most species fail the threshold. They become aggressive, territorial, destructive, like the Morden. But some succeed, Marcus asked. Echo of Depths answered with what was clearly pride. The Vexhi succeeded. They learned to see the galaxy as a garden to be tended, not a resource to be consumed. They've been waiting for another species to join them. Marcus looked around the chamber, suddenly understanding the true scope of what was happening. The attack on the colony. It wasn't an attack at all. Sarah shook her head. It was a test. They needed to see how humans react under extreme stress, whether we default to violence or if we can find other solutions. Stonesinger spoke again, and this time his tone carried what sounded like approval. He says most humans reacted exactly as expected, fighting, hiding, following their fear. But you did something different, Marcus. I came looking for you. No. Sarah's voice was soft. You came looking for me, but when you found me in apparent danger, you didn't immediately attack. You observed. You tried to understand the situation before acting. That's what convinced them that humanity might be ready for the next phase. Echo of Depths produced a small device from her harness and activated it. The chamber filled with a holographic display showing what looked like a star map. Hundreds of systems were marked with different colored indicators. Green markers are starseed worlds where intelligent life is developing, Sarah explained as she listened to Echo of Depths. Yellow markers are species that have achieved the threshold, but haven't been evaluated yet. Red markers are failed species. Marcus counted the markers. There were perhaps 50 green systems, a dozen yellow ones, and hundreds of red markers scattered throughout the galaxy. What are the blue markers? He asked, noticing about 20 systems marked in brilliant blue. Stonesinger answered with what was clearly deep satisfaction. Sarah smiled as she translated. Those are the gardens, worlds where successful species have established what the Vexhi call life temples. Places where the knowledge and achievements of all successful starseed species are preserved and shared. And if humanity passes their evaluation? Echo of Depth spoke, and for the first time Marcus caught what sounded like hope in her alien voice. Then Earth becomes a garden world. Humanity joins the galactic community, and we gain access to the combined knowledge of every species that came before us. Marcus stared at the holographic display, understanding that he was looking at the most important decision in human history. In the space of a few hours, everything had changed. Humanity wasn't alone in the universe, and they weren't under attack. They were being offered a chance to join something magnificent. But first, they had to prove they deserved it. The holographic star map flickered and changed, zooming in on the Sol system. Earth appeared as a large green marker, but Marcus could see something troubling. Small red indicators were scattered around the planet like warning lights. What are those? He asked, pointing at the red markers. Stonesinger's response carried a note of concern that needed no translation. Sarah's face grew troubled as she listened. Military installations, nuclear weapon stockpiles, orbital defense platforms. The Vexhi have been monitoring human development for the past 50 years. Ever since we achieved spaceflight, what they've seen worries them. Echo of Depths activated another function on her device. The display shifted to show recorded footage of human conflicts, wars, environmental destruction, the exploitation of resources on colony worlds. Marcus watched humanity's expansion into space play out from an alien perspective, and what he saw made him ashamed. We don't look very garden-worthy, he admitted. No, Sarah said softly, but we also show potential. That's why they're here. This colony, this test, it's humanity's final evaluation. Stonesinger spoke again, his tone becoming more urgent. Sarah translated quickly. The Vexhi Council is monitoring this interaction in real time through the starseed crystals. Based on what happens here in the next few hours, they'll decide whether to offer humanity membership in the galactic community or to quarantine Earth until we either evolve or destroy ourselves. Marcus felt the weight of that responsibility settle on his shoulders. What do they need to see? Echo of Depths began speaking rapidly, occasionally pausing to allow Sarah to translate. As the conversation progressed, Marcus realized the scope of the challenge they faced. The evaluation has multiple phases, Sarah explained. The first phase tested individual human response to crisis. You passed that by choosing observation over immediate violence. But the second phase is more complex. The holographic display changed again, showing the mining colony from above. Marcus could see heat signatures representing people scattered throughout the facility. Most were huddled in the emergency bunkers, but some were moving through the corridors. The colonial security forces are regrouping, Marcus observed. They're planning a counterattack. Stonesinger's response was grim. Sarah's translation confirmed Marcus's fears. If humans respond to the Vexi presence with organized violence, the evaluation ends immediately. Humanity fails and Earth gets quarantined for the next 1,000 years. But the security forces don't know this is a test. They think we're under attack by hostile aliens. Of course they're planning to fight back. Echo of Depths produced a series of clicks that sounded almost like frustration. Sarah nodded in understanding. That's exactly the point. A truly evolved species would find a way to communicate even in a crisis situation. They would seek understanding before resorting to violence. Marcus stared at the display, watching the security forces move into position. He could see their plan forming. They were setting up a coordinated assault on the main docking bay where the Vexi ships were landed. Standard military doctrine for a facility under siege. How long do we have? He asked. Sarah consulted with both aliens before answering. Maybe an hour. The security forces are waiting for better tactical positioning. Can you contact them? Warn them somehow? The Vexi are still jamming communications. And even if I could reach them, who would believe this story? Marcus thought about Captain Rodriguez, the head of colonial security. A good man but a soldier first. Rodriguez would see armed aliens in his facility and respond accordingly. The idea that this was all an elaborate test would sound like the desperate fantasy of a panicked civilian. Stonesinger spoke directly to Marcus again, his tone carrying a note of challenge. He wants to know what you think should be done, Sarah translated. This is part of the test. Humans must solve this problem themselves. The Vexi won't intervene. Marcus studied the holographic display, his engineer's mind automatically analyzing the problem. The security forces were approaching from the main corridors, planning to use the facility's own defensive systems against the aliens. But what if there was another way? The environmental controls, he said suddenly. I can access them from here through the maintenance systems. Sarah looked puzzled. What are you thinking? Marcus was already moving toward a maintenance panel set into the chamber wall. His authorization code still worked, bringing up the facility's environmental control interface. If I can't communicate with the security forces directly, maybe I can communicate through actions. Make them stop and think instead of just reacting. He began typing commands into the system. Throughout the facility, the lighting changed from emergency red to a soft blue. The temperature in the main corridors started rising, making the areas uncomfortable but not dangerous. You're making the tactical situation impossible, Sarah realized. They can't stage an assault if the environment is hostile to human occupation. That's the idea. But I'm also doing something else. Marcus activated the facility's general announcement system. Since the Vexi were jamming external communications, internal systems still functioned. His voice echoed through every corridor and chamber in the colony. Attention all personnel. This is Marcus Chen, Senior Environmental Engineer. I am currently in direct contact with the alien visitors. They are not hostile. Repeat, they are not hostile. This is a diplomatic situation, not a military one. I am requesting that all armed personnel stand down and allow me to facilitate communication. The response was immediate. Marcus could see the security forces stopping their advance, confusion evident in their movements. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled through the intercom. Chen, what's your situation? Are you under duress? Stonesinger and Echo of Depths watched intently as Marcus responded. He could feel the weight of their evaluation in their alien gazes. Negative, Captain. I am speaking freely. My wife and I have established communication with the aliens. They have technology and knowledge that could benefit all of humanity, but only if we approach this situation as diplomats rather than soldiers. There was a long pause before Rodriguez responded. Chen, that's a hard sell. These things attacked our facility. People are injured. Marcus looked at Echo of Depths, who nodded and activated her device. The holographic display shifted to show recordings from the initial attack. Watching it again, Marcus could see what he had missed in the chaos. The Vexhi had been careful. Their actions looked violent and aggressive, but they had deliberately avoided causing serious harm to humans. Captain, I need you to review the security footage from the initial contact. Look at the casualty reports. For an alien force with obvious technological superiority, their attack was remarkably restrained. Another pause. Marcus could imagine Rodriguez pulling up the data, his military mind analyzing the tactical situation from a new perspective. Jesus, Chen. You're right. Injuries but no fatalities. They disabled our defenses but didn't destroy them. If they wanted us dead, we'd be dead, Marcus finished. Captain, I'm going to try something. I need you to trust me. Marcus turned to Stonesinger and Echo of Depths. Speaking slowly and clearly, he addressed them in English while Sarah translated. I want to propose something, a demonstration that will show both species' commitment to peaceful resolution. Are you willing to take a risk for the sake of building trust? The two Vexhi exchanged rapid communications in their musical language. Finally, Stonesinger nodded. What do you have in mind? Sarah asked. Marcus took a deep breath, knowing that what he was about to suggest would either save humanity's future or doom it entirely. We're going to walk out of here together, all four of us, into the main corridor where the security forces can see us. No weapons, no threats, no protective barriers. Just four beings demonstrating that cooperation is possible. Echo of Depth's response was immediate and alarmed. Sarah paled as she translated. She says that's incredibly dangerous. If your security forces react with violence, people will die. The evaluation will end in failure. That's exactly why it will work, Marcus said. True courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite fear because the cause is greater than yourself. If we want to show the Vexhi that humanity is ready to join the galactic community, we need to demonstrate that we're willing to risk everything for peace. Stonesinger studied Marcus for a long moment, then spoke in measured tones. He says this is either the bravest thing he's ever seen a young species attempt or the most foolish, but he's willing to try. Marcus activated the intercom one more time. Captain Rodriguez, in 5 minutes, we're going to exit the maintenance level through access hatch 7. I'll be accompanied by my wife and 2 alien representatives. I need your word that your people will hold their fire. Rodriguez's response came immediately. Chen, that's insane. I can't guarantee the safety of alien hostiles. They're not hostiles, Captain. They're potential allies, and in 5 minutes we're going to prove it. The access hatch to level 7 felt like a portal between worlds. On one side lay the familiar darkness of the maintenance tunnels where Marcus had discovered the impossible. On the other side waited the future of humanity itself. Stonesinger and Echo of Depths had shed their equipment harnesses, leaving behind anything that could be perceived as weapons. They stood nearly 8 feet tall even in their relaxed postures, their chitinous armor gleaming under the corridor lights. Despite their attempts to appear non-threatening, they were still the most terrifying things Marcus had ever seen. Sarah checked her handheld translator one final time. The device had been quickly programmed using the starseed crystals to provide basic communication between human and Vexhi languages. It wasn't perfect, but it would allow the aliens to speak directly to the security forces. Remember, Sarah said quietly, they understand our body language better than we realize. No sudden movements, keep your hands visible and try to project calm confidence. Marcus almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Project calm confidence while walking into a standoff between human soldiers and alien predators. Right. Echo of Depth spoke softly, and Sarah translated. She says the Vexhi Council is watching through the quantum link. Representatives from 12 successful species are observing this moment. What happens in the next hour will be studied for generations. No pressure, Marcus muttered. Stonesinger placed one of his 4 hands on Marcus's shoulder. The gesture was clearly meant to be reassuring, though the razor-sharp claws made it somewhat less comforting than intended. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of ancient wisdom. He says courage is not measured by the absence of fear, but by the willingness to act despite it. He's honored to share this moment with us. Marcus felt a strange warmth at those words. Here was a being from another world, a member of a species that had mastered interstellar travel and joined a galactic community, calling him courageous. It was almost enough to make him forget that they were about to walk into what could easily become a bloodbath. "Are we ready?" Sarah asked. Marcus nodded and reached for the hatch controls. As the door began to slide open, he could hear Captain Rodriguez's voice echoing from the corridor beyond. "All units, hold positions. Do not engage unless directly threatened. I repeat, hold your fire unless you are in immediate danger." The corridor beyond was brightly lit after the dimness of the maintenance tunnels. Marcus could see security personnel positioned at strategic points, their weapons trained on the hatch but not yet firing. Their faces showed a mixture of fear, confusion, and professional discipline. Marcus stepped out first, his hands clearly visible and empty. Sarah followed, then Echo of Depths, and finally Stonesinger. The effect on the security forces was immediate and dramatic. Several men took involuntary steps backward. One young officer's rifle trembled in his hands. "Easy," Marcus called out. "Everyone stay calm. These beings are here to communicate, not to fight." Captain Rodriguez emerged from cover, his sidearm drawn but pointed at the floor. He was a veteran of colonial conflicts, a man who had faced hostile wildlife and human insurgents with equal composure. But Marcus could see the strain in his eyes as he tried to process the situation. "Chen, step away from them slowly. We'll handle this." "Captain, please listen. These are representatives of an advanced galactic civilization. They're here to evaluate humanity for potential membership in their community. What happens next determines whether Earth joins them or remains isolated for the next 1,000 years. Rodriguez's expression shifted from military alertness to something approaching disbelief. "Chen, you're telling me this is some kind of test?" Echo of Depth stepped forward and activated her translator. When she spoke, the device rendered her musical language into accented but clear English. "Captain Rodriguez, I am Echo of Depths, xenobiologist of the Vexhai Collective. Your species stands at what we call the threshold, the moment when a civilization either evolves beyond its primitive instincts or destroys itself attempting to expand beyond its homeworld." The effect of hearing an alien speak English was profound. Rodriguez lowered his weapon completely, and Marcus could see the same reaction rippling through the security forces. Fear was being replaced by wonder. Stonesinger spoke next, his translated voice carrying the authority of ages. "Humanity has shown great potential. Your technological development, your art, your capacity for growth, all indicate a species capable of joining the galactic community, but you have also shown disturbing tendencies toward violence and territorial aggression. What do you need from us?" Rodriguez asked, his military training taking over. "When faced with a superior force, gather intelligence and assess options." Echo of Depths gestured toward the starseed crystal that Sarah still carried. "Your world contains the seeds of galactic communication, the same quantum-entangled crystals that connect all successful civilizations. But the technology requires cooperation to function properly. No single nation or faction can control it." Marcus saw the implications immediately. "You're saying humanity has to work together to use this technology? No more territorial disputes, no more resource wars." "Not immediately," Stonesinger clarified. "Evolution takes time. But you must demonstrate the capacity for growth, the willingness to choose cooperation over conflict when survival itself is at stake." Rodriguez holstered his weapon completely. "What kind of cooperation?" Sarah stepped forward, her excitement overcoming her caution. "Captain, they're offering us access to technologies that could solve every major problem humanity faces. Clean energy, faster than light travel, medical advances that could eliminate disease and extend human lifespan indefinitely. In exchange for what?" Echo of Depth's response was simple but profound. "In exchange for joining a community dedicated to preserving and nurturing life throughout the galaxy. Your weapons of mass destruction would be dismantled. Your environmental damage would be repaired. Your expansion into space would be guided by wisdom rather than greed." One of the younger security officers spoke up. "What if we refuse? What if humanity wants to go its own way?" Stonesinger's answer carried no threat, only sadness. "Then Earth would be quarantined. Your expansion beyond your solar system would be prevented until your species either evolved naturally or destroyed itself. Based on our observations, most quarantined species do not survive more than a few centuries." Marcus could see Rodriguez processing the information, his strategic mind weighing options. "And if we accept? What's the next step?" "First, this colony must demonstrate successful cooperation between humans and Vexhai," Echo of Depths explained. "We will work together to establish a communication relay using the starseed crystals. This will allow direct contact between Earth and the Galactic Council. Then humanity enters a period of guided development. HFY advisors will help your species transition to post-scarcity economics, clean technology, and sustainable expansion. The process typically takes between 50 and 200 years, depending on the species' adaptability. Rodriguez looked around at his security forces, then back at the aliens. Marcus could see the moment when military protocol gave way to human curiosity and hope. "Gentlemen," Rodriguez announced to his team, "lower your weapons. We're about to make history." As the security forces complied, Marcus felt a profound shift in the atmosphere. Fear was being replaced by possibility. The future that had seemed like an impossible dream just hours ago was becoming reality. But Echo of Depths raised a cautionary hand. "The demonstration must be voluntary. Every human in this facility must choose to participate willingly. Force or coercion will invalidate the evaluation." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "I'll need to address the entire colony. Explain the situation and let everyone decide for themselves." Marcus activated the facility-wide intercom system. "All personnel, this is an emergency assembly. Please report to the main hangar bay immediately. We have information that will affect the future of humanity itself." As people began emerging from their hiding places throughout the facility, Marcus realized they were about to witness something unprecedented in human history. The first voluntary cooperation between humanity and an alien species. The first step toward joining a galactic community. But success was far from guaranteed. Among the colonists were people from dozens of different nations, cultures, and backgrounds. Could they really unite behind this impossible opportunity? Could humanity take its first step toward becoming something greater than it had ever been before? In 30 minutes, they would have their answer. The main hangar bay had never been designed for gatherings, but the 347 colonists of Kepler 442b somehow fit within its cavernous space. They stood in nervous clusters, maintenance workers next to research scientists, security personnel beside their families, children clinging to parents who had no idea how to explain what was happening. At the center of the hangar, the two HFY ships rested like sleeping giants. Their organic curves and bioluminescent markings made them look more grown than built, as if they had sprouted from some alien garden rather than emerging from a factory. Around them, more HFY had emerged, 12 in total. Marcus counted, each one unique in their coloring and markings, but all sharing that same predatory grace that made his hindbrain scream warnings. Marcus stood on an improvised platform made from shipping containers, Sarah beside him with her translator device, Captain Rodriguez representing Colonial Authority, and Stonesinger and Echo of Depths representing a galactic civilization that most of the colonists couldn't even imagine. The murmur of nervous conversation died as Marcus activated the hangar's public address system. 347 human faces turned toward him, and he realized that he was about to deliver the most important speech in human history. 6 hours ago, "We thought we were under attack," he began, his voice echoing in the vast space. "We believed that hostile aliens had come to destroy our colony, to kill our families, to end human expansion into this sector of space. We were wrong." A ripple of confusion passed through the crowd. Marcus could see Dr. Patterson, the colony's chief administrator, pushing forward through the crowd, his face a mask of bureaucratic outrage. 6 hours ago, we experienced first contact with an advanced galactic civilization called the HFY Collective. They didn't come here to conquer us. They came here to offer us something that no human has ever dreamed possible. Membership in a community of species that spans the galaxy. Dr. Patterson reached the front of the crowd. "Chen, what authority do you have to conduct diplomatic negotiations? This is a matter for Earth government, for the Colonial Authority, for..." Stonesinger's translated voice cut through Patterson's protests. "Dr. Patterson, humanity does not have time for bureaucratic delays. Your species stands at a critical evolutionary moment. Within the next 24 hours, you will either demonstrate readiness for galactic citizenship or be classified as a pre-development species requiring quarantine." The word quarantine sent a chill through the crowd. Marcus could see the implications dawning on faces throughout the hangar. Earth cut off from the stars, humanity trapped in its own solar system. All their dreams of expansion and exploration ended before they truly began. Echo of Depths stepped forward, her translator rendering her musical speech into words that carried the weight of cosmic truth. We have observed 47 species reach this same threshold. 31 failed the evaluation and were quarantined until they either evolved or destroyed themselves. Only 16 successfully joined the galactic community. Sarah activated her portable holographic projector, the same one she used for geological presentations. The star map appeared above the crowd, showing the scattered points of light that represented galactic civilization. Green markers for developing worlds, blue markers for successful species, and far too many red markers for those who had failed. "This is what we're being offered," Sarah said, her voice carrying across the hangar without amplification. Access to the combined knowledge of 16 successful civilizations. Technologies that could end poverty, disease, environmental destruction. The chance to explore not just our local stellar neighborhood, but the entire galaxy. Maria Santos, one of the mining supervisors, called out from the crowd, "What's the catch? What do they want from us?" Echo of Depth's response was simple but profound. "We want you to grow up." The translator couldn't quite capture the nuance of the Vexhai language, but Marcus could hear the sadness in Echo of Depth's voice as she continued. Most species that reach technological adolescence become trapped by their own success. They develop the power to reshape worlds, but not the wisdom to use that power responsibly. They expand through conquest rather than cooperation. They exploit rather than nurture. And if we refuse their offer? Dr. Patterson demanded. What if humanity chooses to remain independent? Stonesinger gestured toward the holographic display, highlighting the red markers that represented failed civilizations. Independence is not an option for technological species. The question is whether you will be independent members of a galactic community or independent prisoners in your own solar system. Young Tommy Morrison, barely 16 and one of the few children on the colony, raised his hand with the fearless curiosity of youth. What about our families on Earth? Our friends? What happens to them? Marcus felt his heart tighten at the question. It was the same concern that had been gnawing at him since this all began. Sarah squeezed his hand as Echo of Depths prepared to answer. If this colony successfully demonstrates human readiness for galactic citizenship, Earth will be contacted directly by the Galactic Council. Your entire species will be offered the chance to join us. The transition typically takes between 50 and 200 years, allowing time for cultural adaptation and technological integration. And if we fail? The question came from Jennifer Walsh, the colony's lead botanist. Stonesinger's translated response carried the weight of cosmic law. Then Earth remains quarantined until your species either evolves naturally or destroys itself. Based on current human development trajectories, our xenosociologists estimate a 63% probability of species extinction within the next 2 centuries if you remain isolated. The hangar fell, silent as the colonists absorbed the magnitude of what they were being told. Marcus could see the fear in their faces, but also something else, hope, wonder. The kind of awe that came with standing at the edge of the infinite and being offered a chance to step forward. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. What exactly do you need us to do? Echo of Depths activated a device that projected a complex schematic into the air above the crowd. We need to construct a quantum communication array using the starseed crystals found on your world. This will establish a direct link between this colony and the Galactic Council, allowing for immediate evaluation of human readiness. Dr. Morrison, Tommy's father and the colony's chief engineer, studied the schematic with professional interest. How complex is the construction? The technology itself is advanced beyond current human understanding, Stonesinger explained. But the construction process is designed to test cooperative abilities rather than technical knowledge. Humans and Vexhai must work together, sharing resources and expertise. Neither species can complete the project alone. Marcus saw the elegant trap that had been laid. The Vexhai weren't just testing humanity's willingness to cooperate. They were making cooperation a prerequisite for success. Brilliant. What about the people who don't want to participate? Asked Rachel Kim, one of the security technicians. What if some of us think this is too dangerous? Echo of Depth's response was immediate and firm. Participation must be voluntary. Anyone who wishes to remain uninvolved may do so without penalty. However, the project requires at least 60% voluntary participation from your colony to be considered valid. Dr. Patterson stepped forward again, his bureaucratic instincts finally catching up with the situation. This is insane. We're talking about fundamental changes to human civilization based on the word of aliens we met 6 hours ago. Shouldn't we contact Earth? Get proper authorization? Stone Singer's translated laughter was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Dr. Patterson, do you believe your Earth governments would respond to this opportunity with wisdom or with fear? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus thought about the political situation back on Earth, the territorial disputes, the arms races, the endless cycle of competition and conflict that had driven humanity to the stars in the first place. They'd try to weaponize it, Marcus said quietly. The technology, the contact, everything. They'd see the Vexhi as either a threat to be destroyed or a resource to be exploited, which is why the evaluation must happen here, Echo of Depths confirmed, away from the political complications of your homeworld. This colony represents humanity at its best, people who left their world behind to build something new among the stars. Marcus looked out at the faces in the crowd and realized she was right. These weren't politicians or generals or corporate executives. These were explorers, scientists, engineers, families who had risked everything for the chance to make a new life among the stars. If anyone could represent humanity's potential, it was them. So what's it going to be? Marcus asked the crowd. Do we take the greatest leap in human history, or do we let fear keep us trapped in our own limitations? The silence that followed was pregnant with possibility. Marcus could feel the weight of history balanced on a knife's edge, waiting for humanity to choose its future. The first hand to rise belonged to Tommy Morrison. The 16-year-old boy stood straight and tall, his young face shining with the kind of fearless optimism that adults often forgot they once possessed. I volunteer, he said simply. My generation deserves a chance to see the galaxy. His father, Dr. Morrison, looked at his son with a mixture of pride and terror. After a moment that felt like an eternity, he raised his own hand. If my boy's willing to build the future, then so am I. The gesture rippled through the crowd like a wave. Maria Santos raised her hand, followed by Jennifer Walsh, then Captain Rodriguez. One by one, the colonists made their choice, until nearly 2/3 of the assembly had volunteered to participate in humanity's first interstellar collaboration. But not everyone was convinced. Dr. Patterson stood with his arms crossed, his face set in bureaucratic disapproval. Around him, perhaps 100 colonists remained undecided, their faces showing the natural human fear of the unknown. This is madness, Patterson declared. We're risking everything on the word of aliens who attacked our facility just hours ago. What guarantee do we have that this isn't some elaborate deception? Stone Singer's response was patient but firm. Dr. Patterson, what could we possibly gain through deception? If we wish to harm humanity, we possess the technology to do so without elaborate ruses. If we wish to exploit your resources, we could simply take them. Then why the charade? Why not just contact Earth directly? Echo of Depths activated her holographic display again, this time showing recordings of previous first contact scenarios with other species. The images were haunting. Some showed successful integration, species working together to build something magnificent. Others showed failure, worlds scarred by conflict and fear. Because first contact between civilizations is the most dangerous moment in both species' histories, she explained. If we had contacted your Earth governments directly, what would have been their first response? Marcus answered before Patterson could. Military mobilization. They would have assumed hostile intent and prepared for war. Precisely. Most species fail the threshold not because they lack intelligence or potential, but because their first response to the unknown is violence. By observing you here, in a controlled situation, we can evaluate your true nature. Rachel Kim, who had been quiet since asking her question earlier, stepped forward. What about the people who don't want to participate? What happens to them? They remain free to live their lives as they choose, Stone Singer assured her. Success of the project does not require unanimity, only sufficient cooperation to demonstrate species-wide potential. Dr. Patterson shook his head. And when this project of yours changes everything, when Earth becomes part of your galactic Civilization and human society is transformed beyond recognition. What happens to those of us who valued the way things were? Echo of Depth's response was surprisingly gentle. Change is the nature of growth, Dr. Patterson. But growth does not require the destruction of what came before. The Vexi have preserved the cultures and traditions of every species that has joined us. Diversity is strength, even in unity. The holographic display shifted to show glimpses of other worlds. Cities that blended alien architecture with preserved historical districts. Technologies that enhanced rather than replaced natural environments. Civilizations that had grown beyond their planetary boundaries while maintaining their unique identities. Our homeworld still contains the caves where our species first developed consciousness, Stonesinger added. Our oldest songs are still sung in our original language. Joining the galactic community means adding to it, not being absorbed by it. Marcus could see the resistance in Patterson's group beginning to weaken. The images from other worlds showed not conquest but cooperation, not the destruction of the old, but its integration with something greater. Sarah stepped forward, her voice carrying the passion that had driven her to become a xenogeologist. Think about what we're being offered. The chance to explore not just this galaxy but others beyond it, to learn from civilizations that solved problems we haven't even encountered yet. To become part of something that spans not just worlds but epochs. And the price? Patterson demanded. What do we give up? Our weapons of mass destruction, Echo of Depths replied without hesitation. Our territorial conflicts, our resource wars, our habit of treating the universe as something to be conquered rather than explored. You're asking us to give up being human. No. Stonesinger's translated voice carried what sounded like amusement. We are asking you to become more human than you have ever been, to live up to the potential your species has always possessed, but rarely achieved. Tommy Morrison stepped forward again, his young voice cutting through the adult arguments with startling clarity. Mr. Patterson, my parents brought me to this world so I could have opportunities they never had. Isn't this just a bigger version of the same thing? The simple wisdom of the statement seemed to deflate some of Patterson's resistance. Marcus could see the older man struggling with concepts that challenged everything he thought he knew about humanity's place in the universe. Captain Rodriguez checked his chronometer. How long do we have to make this decision? The communication array can be constructed in approximately 18 hours if sufficient cooperation is achieved, Echo of Depths explained. The Galactic Council will evaluate your species based on how efficiently you work together during the construction process. And if we succeed, what happens then? Stonesinger gestured toward the Vexi ships. Then we establish permanent diplomatic contact between humanity and the Galactic Council. Earth receives its formal invitation to join the galactic community, and your species begins its transition to true interstellar civilization. Marcus felt the weight of the moment settling on the entire colony. They weren't just deciding their own fate, they were deciding the fate of every human being who would ever live. Success would open the galaxy to humanity. Failure would trap Earth in isolation until the species either evolved naturally or destroyed itself. Dr. Morrison stepped up to the improvised platform. I think we need to put this to a formal vote. All in favor of participating in the construction project? Hands rose throughout the hangar, not just from those who had already volunteered, but from others who had been swayed by the discussion. Marcus counted quickly. Over 70% of the colonists. All opposed? Perhaps 60 hands rose, mostly from Patterson's group but including some others who simply couldn't overcome their fear of the unknown. Abstentions? The remaining hands rose reluctantly. Captain Rodriguez nodded formally. The measure passes. This colony will participate in humanity's first interstellar cooperation project. Echo of Depths activated her communicator, speaking rapidly in the musical Vexi language. After a moment, she turned back to the assembled humans. The Galactic Council has been informed of your decision. Construction of the communication array will begin at first light. Those who have volunteered will be organized into mixed human Vexi work teams. Those who have chosen not to participate are free to observe or to continue their normal duties. As the crowd began to disperse, Marcus felt Sarah's hand slip into his. They had done it. Humanity had chosen to take its first step towards something greater than itself. But as he watched Dr. Patterson's group filing out of the hangar, their faces set in disapproval and fear, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that the real test was just beginning. Building the communication array would be the easy part. Living with the consequences of their choice would challenge everything humanity thought it knew about itself. The future was no longer certain, but for the first time in human history, it was genuinely unlimited. Whether that would prove to be humanity's greatest triumph or its final mistake remained to be seen. 18 hours later, Marcus stood before a structure that shouldn't have been possible to build. The quantum communication array rose from the center of the colony's main plaza like a crystalline tree, its branches reaching toward the alien stars above. Starseed crystals pulsed with soft light at each junction, their quantum-entangled particles creating a network that spanned galactic distances in defiance of Einstein's speed limit. But the truly impossible thing wasn't the technology, it was what Marcus had witnessed during its construction. Humans and Vexi had worked side by side, sharing not just tools and materials but ideas and solutions. Language barriers had dissolved as necessity bred innovation. Dr. Morrison had collaborated with a Vexi engineer to solve structural problems neither species could have tackled alone. Maria Santos had taught alien workers to operate human mining equipment, while learning to use Vexi tools that responded to bioelectric fields rather than mechanical controls. Most remarkably, the work had proceeded without a single serious conflict. When disagreements arose, they were settled through demonstration and compromise rather than argument and dominance. It was as if the shared goal had awakened something in both species, a capacity for cooperation that transcended biological differences. Echo of Depths approached Marcus as he contemplated the completed array. The alien's four eyes reflected the crystal's pulsing light, giving her an almost ethereal appearance. "The Galactic Council is ready for the final evaluation," she announced. "Are you prepared?" Marcus nodded, though he wasn't sure anyone could truly be prepared for what was about to happen. The communication array would establish real-time contact with civilizations scattered across the galaxy. Humanity was about to meet its cosmic neighbors. Sarah joined them, her face glowing with exhaustion and excitement. She had spent the night documenting every aspect of the construction process, creating humanity's first academic paper on interspecies collaboration. Her data would eventually form the foundation for Earth's integration protocols. "Any last-minute doubts?" she asked Marcus quietly. He considered the question seriously. Over the past day, he had watched humanity prove something that even he had doubted, that fear could be overcome by hope, that competition could be replaced by collaboration, that the impossible could become inevitable when people chose to reach beyond their limitations. "No doubts," he said firmly. "Whatever happens next, we've already proven that humanity can grow." Stone Singer approached with Captain Rodriguez and Tommy Morrison. The young man had become something of a symbol during the construction, working tirelessly alongside alien technicians and inspiring other humans to push beyond their comfort zones. "The array is calibrated and ready," Stone Singer announced. "Tommy has been chosen to speak for humanity during the initial contact. His youthful perspective will demonstrate your species' capacity for growth." Marcus felt a moment of panic. Shouldn't this be handled by Dr. Patterson? Or Captain Rodriguez, someone with authority? Authority based on fear and control is precisely what the Galactic Council doesn't want to see, Echo of Depths explained. Tommy represents humanity's future, curious, optimistic, unafraid of change. That is the voice we want them to hear. Tommy stepped forward, his young face serious with the weight of responsibility. "What should I say?" Stone Singer's translated response carried warmth that transcended species boundaries. "Say what humans have always said when meeting strangers. Introduce yourself. Express your hopes. Ask questions. The Council doesn't expect perfection. They want to see authenticity." The communication array began to resonate with a harmony that seemed to emerge from the quantum level itself. Other Vexi joined the gathering, along with the human colonists who had participated in the construction. Even some of Dr. Patterson's group had come to witness the moment, their curiosity overcoming their reservations. Dr. Patterson himself stood at the edge of the crowd, his face a mask of conflicted emotions. Marcus felt a stab of sympathy for the man. Patterson represented the old way of thinking, careful, cautious, protective of human independence. That mindset had helped humanity survive its evolutionary adolescence, but it would become a liability in a galactic community built on trust and cooperation. The array's resonance reached a crescendo, and suddenly the air above it shimmered with holographic images. Beings from across the galaxy appeared in the plaza, their forms so diverse that Marcus's mind struggled to process them all. Some were recognizably biological, others seemed to be pure energy, and a few appeared to exist in dimensions that human perception couldn't fully grasp. But despite their alien nature, Marcus could sense something familiar in their presence: intelligence, curiosity, and what could only be described as benevolent interest. One figure stepped forward from the galactic assembly, a being that seemed to be made of living crystal, not unlike the starseed formations. When it spoke, the sound was like a symphony of chimes that the translation devices rendered into perfect English. "Greetings, young humans. I am Harmonic of Infinite Voices, current speaker for the Galactic Council. We have observed your recent demonstration with great interest." Tommy stepped forward with the fearless dignity that only the young possessed. "Hello, Harmonic of Infinite Voices. I'm Tommy Morrison, representing the humans of Kepler 442b. We're honored to meet you." "The honor is mutual, young Tommy. Your species has shown remarkable potential during this evaluation. The construction of the communication array required levels of interspecies cooperation that many civilizations cannot achieve even after centuries of contact." Another being joined the conversation, this one resembling a graceful aquatic creature adapted for terrestrial existence. "I am flow between currents of the aquatic collective. My species struggled with cooperation for over 2,000 years before successfully joining the galactic community. Your achievement in 18 hours is unprecedented." Marcus felt a surge of pride not just in humanity, but in the specific group of people who had made this moment possible. 347 colonists on a remote mining world had just set the standard for interstellar diplomacy. Tommy's next question was perfectly, innocently human. "What happens now? Do we get to visit your worlds? Do you come to visit ours?" Harmonic of Infinite Voices' response carried what could only be described as cosmic amusement. "Eventually, yes, but first your species must complete its transition. Earth will be contacted within the next few days. Your planet will receive the same choice you were given here: cooperation or quarantine. And if Earth chooses differently than we did?" The question came from Dr. Patterson, who had worked his way closer to the array despite his reservations. "Then Earth will be given time to reconsider," Flow Between Currents replied gently. "But this colony has proven that humans possess the capacity for galactic citizenship. That potential will not be ignored, even if your homeworld initially chooses isolation." Stonesinger stepped forward, addressing the council directly. "The Vexi request permission to establish a permanent diplomatic mission to this colony, serving as humanity's introduction to galactic civilization." "Granted," Harmonic of Infinite Voices replied immediately. "Furthermore, this colony is hereby designated as humanity's first galactic protectorate. You will receive technological assistance and cultural guidance as your species adapts to its new status." Sarah squeezed Marcus's hand tightly. They had done it. Humanity had passed its cosmic examination and earned its place among the stars. But Tommy's final question reminded everyone that this was just the beginning. Will it be hard, changing everything we thought we knew about being human? Harmonic of Infinite Voices' response carried the wisdom of eons. "Growing up is always difficult, young Tommy, but you have already taken the hardest step, choosing to grow at all. The rest is simply a matter of time and patience." As the holographic council faded and the communication array powered down, Marcus looked around at the faces of his fellow colonists. They were the same people who had awakened that morning as simple miners and researchers. But they would go to sleep that night as humanity's first galactic citizens. The impossible had indeed occurred, not because aliens had invaded Earth, but because humans had chosen to become something greater than they had ever been before. The man who had anticipated that extraterrestrial beasts would slay his wife had discovered instead that the greatest threat to humanity's future was humanity's own fear of change. And in choosing hope over fear, cooperation over conflict, growth over stagnation, they had saved not just themselves but their entire species. The stars no longer seemed cold and distant. They were home, and humanity was finally ready to explore them.